from drug trade to really focusing on trafficking because it's a product that can keep going. And it's young girls, and I think we see it all the time and don't realize it. We just think it's, 3 or 4 young ladies, teenage girls, 15, 16, 17 years old, just hanging out, but they're actually on the track, working. We see it all the time. I mean, it's all over Facebook, Instagram. I mean, it's very, very different. A lot of these exchanges are done through, social media. Unfortunately, I think a lot of these young women and men are, have so much trauma early in their lives that I think they're just very desensitized to it. And, they talk about this type of work, as if they're saying, talking about the weather. I think a lot of the emotion, unfortunately, is, kind of taken out of it. But, we're seeing, young women trafficking each other. And again, it's just bringing their friends in, I'm making money this way, come work with me. So it's a very, very, very big problem. Because we actually, our department has a partnership now with the Chicago Police Department, with the FBI, where we, meet probably every couple of months just to sit down and talk about, young women that are being trafficked that are on the radar, either with the police department or with the FBI, and just continually trying to determine how it's, impacting the youth that we serve on probation.
So there's that whole aspect of women in violence, and here what Tamala is talking about is also young men being brought into this. But then there's also a whole other aspect, which is just generally bringing domestic violence out of the shadows. Which is a different kind of violence, that is sort of socially sanctioned in some ways. And again, that's a kind of violence that goes across all different socioeconomics, intelligence, education, and it doesn't get talked about, and sometimes women end up dealing with it to the extent to which they come out of isolation and they get some help to deal with it. They can end up working with it within their communities, and not realizing that this is actually an impact that goes all the way across the board. So how might women unite to address those issues, to bring it out of the shadows so that it stops? And then related to that, as Tamala said, there's this whole backdrop, which is trauma, the impact of intergenerational trauma across the generations. In the United States, particularly to the extent to which it is still active in all of our communities related to the violence of slavery. So it's maybe doesn't sound like or look like what it used to look like, but trauma goes from generation to generation. You see it with Holocaust survivors. Their children are impacted by the violence that their parents experience. It's the same thing here. And then last, the question is how to address women's issues in a way that include all women. Too often, it ends up being sort of different subgroups of women. So, what would it take for all women to be involved in that? And we came up with a whole bunch of other things here, but as we were talking about it, we were like, okay, we'll settle on these. Tamala and Arthi, is there anything you want to add from what we talked about that hasn't been named?
Well, I would just say that there were so many things, I mean, we could have gone on all day. We realized that this is a conference in itself. And so you may be thinking of some things that we have on this board, but it was just kind of like, we were like, oh my gosh, this is much bigger than just one panel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And in some ways, maybe underneath all of it, we could say that the arc is how to go from conditional confidence, where you feel like your confidence is linked to how you look, how much money you're making, what your status is, to some sense of unconditional confidence and confidence about your worth as a human being. So that's what we didn't get a title.
I still gotta think about this. Yeah.